Everybody, welcome to Accounts Receivable AR Part 6, examples for determining the allowance for doubtful accounts via an AR aging. Oh, to the Google Sheets, let's go. All right, let's come over here. We're not done yet. We're not going to say goodbye. Okay, so what exactly is an AR aging? An AR aging is, well, let's kind of look at this over here. Here, I just have an accounts receivable balance, and I'm saying that, well, 10% is not going to be collectible. But here's a little bit different. We're now looking at accounts receivable in terms of categories, right? The older something gets, well, I like to kind of think myself, I get better with age, but with accounts receivable, it's not the case, right? So with accounts receivable, the older something gets, it's going to be more difficult for me to go through and collect. So when you see this, days past due is 0. I'm generally going to be able to collect the entire thing. Now, these percentages, they have to be given to you by your instructor, right? They're basically estimates by management. When we look at this, is what does management estimate that they're not going to be able to collect? When Facebook posts this over here, they do not expect to collect $110 million of their total accounts receivable. Here, what we're just doing is we're using an aging. So what exactly does this mean? Well, for the 100 grand, it's going to be 2% uncollectible. Over here, 50 is 3%, 80 is 4.5%, 90 is 10%, 300 is 50, 400 is 75%. So we're going to determine the ending balance and the allowance for doubtful accounts. Remember, our step one either is a percentage of accounts receivable or is a percentage of an aging of accounts receivable. Our steps are exactly the same. We're sitting here on our books with, so our AR balance is going to be $1,020,000. And what we have to go through and figure out is what is going to be our balance and our allowance for doubtful accounts. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the AR balance and multiply it by the percentage uncollectible to give me my total ADA amount. So I've got 100,000 times 2% or 2,000. 50 times 3% or 1,500, 80,000 times 4.5 or 3,600, 90,000 times 10% or 9,000, 300,000 times 50% or 150,000, and then 400,000 times 75% or 300,000. So over here, right, this is 100,000 times 2%, 50 times 3%, 80 times 4.5%. We have here 90 times 0.1, 300 times 0.5, and then 400 times 0.75. So right over here, I'm going to add up all of these amounts here, and the ending balance in my allowance for doubtful accounts is a whopper. Right over here, I've got a credit balance of $466,100. That's my first step. My balance sheet presentation right over here for the company for LGA. So I'm going to have LGA balance sheet as of 12/31/25. I'm going to have assets, right? Accounts receivable, it's electrified. So it's going to be a current asset. No, it's not electrified, but we're going to be using it in the next year. So right over here, what we're going to do is we're going to say AR less the allowance for doubtful accounts is going to be accounts receivable net. So over here, $1,020,000. Over here, it's $466,100. So my accounts receivable net is going to be $553,900. That's my balance sheet presentation. Okay, so let's get to some fun questions. First question right over here is okay. My accounts receivable was $1,020,000. My allowance for doubtful accounts is $466,100. So assuming that the ADA okay. So assuming that the ADA had a $10,000 beginning credit balance, determine bad debt expense. So for part C, right, if my beginning balance over here is 10 grand, right? What is it that I'm going to need to do to get to 466? 10,000 is not equal 466. So what I'm going to have to go through and do is I'm going to have to go through and record bad debt expense. Remember, as we're going through and doing these questions, whatever we need, we got our beginning balance. We don't have any write-offs or collect prior AR, but our last step here is going to be putting in bad debt expense. So when I come over here, well, what is my bad debt expense? Well, 10,000 plus X equals 466,100. X is going to be equal to 466,100 minus 10,000 if I'm isolating X. X is going to be equal to 456,100. And what I always want to do is I want to check my chinchillas. I want to make sure that things work. So I'm going to credit my allowance for doubtful accounts right over here for 456,100. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to debit bad debt expense for that exact same amount. Journal entry to record bad debt expense is always going to be the same. I'm going to debit bad debt expense. I'm going to credit the allowance for doubtful accounts. And right over here, I'm off to the races. Okay, so date, account, debit, credit. Okay, there we go. So that's part C. Now, assume that the ADA has a $8,000 beginning debit balance. What does this look like now? So again, nothing is going to change in terms of my ending AR net and also in terms of the allowance for doubtful accounts. It's only if it's going to be a debit or a credit. So remember, if I'm doing this over here, my procedure is going to be a little bit different. I'm now going to say, well, Y minus 8,000 equals 466,100. Y is going to be equal to 466,100 plus 8,000. Okay. So Y is going to be equal to 474,100. 474,100. Okay, let's see if it works. If I put 474,100 in here, right? 474,100 minus 8,000 gives me 466,100. So I know I've done it correctly. Always check your work. Now, in terms of going through and doing the journal entry, basically it's going to be exactly the same. So when I look at this, my date is going to be 12/31/25. I'm going to debit bad debt expense over here. My debit for bad debt expense is going to be how much? My debit for bad debt expense is going to be whatever I needed to do to balance the allowance for doubtful account. I record expenses with a debit. This is going to be 474,1, 474,1, debit, credit, and this is going to be to record bad debt expense. So as we're looking at both of these methodologies, we're doing the same thing, right? The balance sheet presentation looks very similar. It's just different ways of getting to the number. These are both acceptable methods for going through and determining what should our accounts, how do we determine the allowance for doubtful accounts? So I want to thank you for being here with me today. If you have any questions about the video, appreciate your liking and subscribing to the channel. And I will look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a great day.